The stats will either surprise you or won't. It depends on how you look at it, but the hype is only growing. Avatar 2 has been on its way to becoming one of the most anticipated movies of the century. The numbers have been crunched, the verdicts have come in, and opinions are already floating around all netizen circles. We'll let the experts decide, so let's get into it. First up, the facts, figures, and predictions. The first Avatar movie wasn't any short on criticisms, but there's been plenty of time to turn the haters into fans or even more curious haters than before. The years-long gap between the first installment and the upcoming movies got people interested in the possible upgrades in visuals and what the storyline could offer. It's only weeks away and no one's entirely prepared. So what's the forecast like? Industry experts say it'll be raining cold, hard cash. For a better understanding, the best explanation has been that it'll be raking in twice as much as the 2009 release. Boxoffice Pro's trade publication wasn't shy about the sequel's possible success and ran the numbers to around $135 million domestically on the opening weekend alone. Although our knowledge of the global is limited, this still seems impressive. It makes sense to launch in December when there isn't much else happening in the market, and it will be simple to cash in on the holiday season if any new Hallmark releases don't easily sway consumers. Not everyone agrees, and it's putting people in literal wars on the internet. The predictions are volatile, even for the systems to stay too consistent, and the slider on the scale isn't getting a break just yet. A lot of factors go into determining a movie's success. Worst case scenario, $475 million in domestic total. For some, the incredible record of $3 billion set by the first Avatar movie seems pretty impossible to beat. Next up, the price of success. It's safe to say the directors and producers are shaky about the results for a good reason. The second Avatar movie didn't come cheap. If anything, it's one of the most expensive movies to have been made, coming to a total of about $250 million in production value. Some of the comments from popular cinephiles have made it clear that their expectations for the new movie are high. "I'm not buying tickets just to see good CGI," said a Redditor. But the world knows James Cameron takes his craft very seriously. Come on, you'd think that if someone threw hundreds of millions into a movie, would it be so carelessly done? Cameron's pitch must have been pretty strong to convince the producers to invest as much as they did. We admit the up-and-coming generation of cinephiles is getting harder and harder to please, because we live in a world where better standards can be set. But what's the limit? Are the critics too critical these days? Movies like those from Marvel Studios have set a precedent for the visual quality they might be backing down on now, because it's not so simple to keep CGI quality in a time crunch. For now, Cameron's ensured that the visuals aren't for nothing. This franchise is becoming a long-term goal, people. Cameron's had plenty of time to let the ideas simmer, and all the best things take time. Let's hope the next Avatar movie after this doesn't take more than 10 years again. And that hope just might have been heard. Now for the long-term vision. We've got good news, but that depends on the bad news, so we'll cover that first. The box office will be a huge factor in deciding the franchise's fate. Cameron's been pretty honest about the prospects, even though, and here's the good news, we guess, the other successive movies have been planned for 2024, 2026, and 2028. He did say that it'll be the third movie that will be acting as the litmus test for the continuation of the last two movies.
And I said, actually, no, because the reason I want to make the film is exactly because of the tree-hugging, hippie, hairy-legged Birkenstocks-wearing.
So it's great to hear that we've got at least one more movie coming out before we can worry about the turn this series will take. This isn't to say that the success of the second movie won't play a role in the decision at all. If it doesn't do too well, Cameron plans to give fans closure in the third movie and complete the story. What possible problems are we looking at? It could be misinterpreted or overexcited marketing, but fans are already concerned about Avatar 2's plot premise. While much hasn't been given away, because no one wants to spoil their movie, much of it seems similar to the first. Jake's son not keeping up with the culture and practices of his new tribe, a nice girl around his age comes around to show him the ropes, and their world is again in danger. Now, we don't know if humans are entirely responsible for this danger. There have been implications of a greater threat, but we won't know until we see it. Let's look into the possible plot changes so far. Talking about human threats, we need to look at Colonel Miles Quaritch's development in the movie, because he could make or break the plot entirely. We get taking risks with a story story, but it needs to be justified. We saw that Quaritch was a nut-V in the trailer. What on earth's that about? He hates them. But this fact alone makes this development a lot more sinister, and we have many questions. While the first movie convinced us he was as good as dead, we're now second-guessing what went on behind the smoke and debris. We'll have to take a look at Jake, so let's go back for a refresher. Jake Sully was originally paralyzed in his human form, but could walk again by placing his consciousness in the body of a nut-V. We suspect that this might have been the same way Quaritch survived the poles that pierced his back. But is this a good move? The change in form is permanent, since there is no way his human body survived, but it risks the impact of Jake's transformation becoming less meaningful. Do you know what else this implies? There are members or tribes within the world that are possibly not pure of heart, or they were manipulated by Quaritch. Who knows? But the world of Pandora is huge, and it's not like the first movie covered everything. Coming up, will Quaritch be the same as we knew him? Well, yes and no. Becoming a nut-V does have some after effects, but I doubt anyone's consciousness will allow decades worth of consistent behavior to be replaced with anything else.
Out there beyond that fence, every living thing that crawls, flies, or squats in the mud wants to kill you and eat your eyes for jujubes.
Quaritch is a very aggressive character, but the aggressiveness might take on a new direction as he unconsciously integrates into the body of the nut-V. In the first movie, he was a one-dimensional villain, but with the added screen time to his character, we might get to see more than what we bargained for. That said, we're sure Quaritch can't be working alone this time if he wants to avoid making the same mistakes. It would make sense for him to put himself and his team in the same kind of danger again without at least trying to go back to the memory of the battle to understand where he went wrong. Finally, did Quaritch maybe prepare for his defeat? He seems self-confident and self-centered, so we doubt the possibility of losing the battle even crossed his mind. But then again, he's also in the military, and there must always be contingency plans, no matter how strong anyone's forces are.
Pandora will shit you out dead with zero warning. I pulled your record, Corporal.
So here's what we think. Quaritch and his men were prepared for the loss and grew nut-V bodies as a backup plan. Once their expected victory fell through disastrously, they transferred their consciousness just in time to the nut-V bodies. Sure, they hate the nut-Vs, but their bodies are made to traverse the landscapes much better than regular human bodies, so it would make sense to utilize them for efficiency's sake. The reasons are selfish, of course, but that's the whole point of Quaritch's character. Talking about transforming into the nut-V, we know Grace Augustine's kind of making a comeback. Yeah, she's dead, but her original actress will return to play the new role of Jake's adopted daughter, Kiri. We know that Jake tried to preserve Grace's life by attempting to transfer her consciousness to her avatar's body at the Tree of Souls, but it was too late. She was more than half gone, and there wasn't enough life force to keep her around. People are theorizing that whatever Awa, the life force of Pandora, could salvage Grace's consciousness, they reformed it into a new life. That new life being Kiri. Again, taking it with a grain of salt, but it's an interesting take nonetheless. That's a wrap for today's video. What are your expectations for the release? As always, click that like button and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more exciting Avatar content. See you in the next video.